There's nothing quite like the Porsche Panamera. Nothing in terms of style, but more importantly, nothing in terms of practicality. The Panamera is one of the most uniquely, bizarrely versatile cars in the world. It's also one of my absolute favorites.
Why? Well, let's look at the specs. This is the GTS, and it slots between the Panamera 4S and the Turbo. We have all-wheel drive. We have a twin-clutch transmission. We actually get brakes from the Turbo, although this car's on ceramic rotors. This car rides 10 millimeters lower and has more aggressive suspension tuning. We also have, thankfully, a high-revving and naturally aspirated 4.8-liter V8. It has new valve springs, new camshafts, and an airbox, which help it develop 430 horsepower. That's 30 more than the standard V8. Torque has increased too, and thankfully, so has the redline to 7,100 RPM. Top speed, 178 miles an hour.
So what does all that mean? Well, the Panamera is fast. At the test track, it hit 60 miles an hour in 4.1 seconds, and the quarter mile in 12.7 seconds at 107.2 miles an hour. That's about as fast as a V8 Audi R8, and it's simply effortless. You hit the Sport Plus button, hit both pedals, and then lift off the brake. Our best stop from 60 miles an hour was just 106 feet. During its 25-second figure 8 lap, it generated 0.99 lateral average G, which is again on par with the R8.
So you hear all that and you may be thinking, well, yeah, that's appreciably fast. But what makes the Panamera special? Well, for that, you have to look behind me. And when you do, you'll see the 2 extra doors, the 2 extra seats, the tons of headroom and cargo room. You see, what makes this car special is that it's a 4-door supercar. And that finally gets us back to why we're cruising on the freeway in the middle of nowhere. You see, with the Panamera, it's not just the performance and it's not just the functionality. It's how masterfully it blends those 2 aspects. And that's something you can only really appreciate after driving it for a long time. So for this episode, we're going to take it on a long drive, or we're actually halfway through that now, to a good mountain road a few hours north of LA. After driving this thing for a long time on the freeway, you begin to appreciate certain things, like how when you're cruising at 75, the engine's barely turning 1800 RPM, the sound it makes on a downshift when you roll on the throttle. This interior too, the layout feels futuristic and unique. It's like sitting at the bridge of a spaceship, but it's not alien, it's still functional. All the gauges and knobs fall right at the touch of your fingertips, and it's all very easy to use. The seats are typically German. They're very firm, very supportive, but also very comfortable. You can spend a couple hundred miles in these things and never feel fatigued or tired. And then there's the matter of fuel economy. This thing on the freeway is rated at 23 miles per gallon, which, would you guess it, beats the current R8 V8. There has to be a few problems though, and there are. The first is most obviously this hunchback shape in the rear. It's definitely the clumsiest visual feature of the car. But after spending so much time with this car, I don't see it like that anymore because I know it's functional. The result of that shape is a ton of headroom in here. Other problems? Well, this is a lot of car. It's a large car, and as a result, it weighs nearly 4,400 pounds. It also costs quite a bit of money. This car, as tested, is $146,000. Now, $36,000 worth of that is options, and some of them are kind of silly, like this key fob here, for example. It's silver, right? $335. This paint, $3,140. That's right, you're paying over $3,000 for silver paint. You get rid of a lot of those frivolous options though, and you get closer to the car's base price, and then you start thinking about how practical it is, how fast it is, how comfortable it is, and then it almost seems worthwhile. drive this car along a winding mountain road, you can feel like you can put it right up against its limits, and it's never gonna scare you, never gonna surprise you. It doesn't feel overly cautious either. It's just rewarding the whole time. That's really what makes this car so special. You know, if you told somebody 20 years ago that there would be a sedan that handled the way this thing does, they'd call you crazy. They'd lock you up in a mental institution. If you were to take this car back in time somehow, they'd wonder what planet you came from. Not just because of the styling, okay, maybe because of the styling, but also because of how well it drives. I mean, this is just delightful. So what you have with the Panamera is a very good driver's tool, a very good car for the commute, a very good car for long hauls, a ton of cargo room. You could take this thing camping, you could take it up a canyon road. I mean, this car does everything. Okay, it doesn't climb rocks, but it basically does everything else. It's hard to think of a car that is more complete than this.
The Panamera is a bit of an odd one, not for its looks, but for its capabilities. Forget the styling, and what do you have? Well, you have all the ingredients of a luxury grand touring car. You have 4 comfortable seats, you have an attractive interior, and you have lots of cargo space. So it's good for the commute, it's good for road trips. But you also have, wrapped in the same package, an excellent sports car with brilliant driving dynamics and a wonderful engine note. It's an unparalleled level of versatility that separates the Panamera from being a mere car. It's the Swiss Army knife of driving.